Example 2, Air Force height requirement using StatCrunch. Until recently, the U.S. Air Force required that pilots have heights between 64 inches and 77 inches. Heights of women are normally distributed with a mean of 63.7 inches and a standard deviation of 2.9 inches. What percentage of women meet the height requirement? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a picture. So we're going to draw a bell curve. Okay, and then we're going to label what they give us as the mean. So the mean is 63.7. And we want to find the area that's going to be in between 64 inches and 77 inches. So we're going to call the first value of x x1, and that's going to be 64 inches. And then the second value is going to be x2, which is 77 inches. And therefore, this is going to represent the x scale, which is currently in inches. Okay, so we're going to shade the region that we want to find, which is the area that's in between those. So we want to find that probability. So now that we labeled the values of those, now we want to take a look at, okay, underneath it would represent the z scale. So if this represents the z scale, then we know that the mean for the z scale is always 0. And so what we want to do is we want to find out what z1 is equal to, and we want to find out what z2 is equal to according to x1 and x2. So again, we know that women have heights that are normally distributed. They have a mean of 63.7, a standard deviation of 2.9. x1 is equal to 64 inches, and x2 is equal to 77 inches. We've drawn the normal curve, we shaded the desired area, and we labeled those values. Now, the shaded region again represents the women with heights that are between 64 inches and 77 inches. So what we're going to do now is convert both x1, which is equal to 64 inches, and x2 equals 77 inches to z-scores. So for z1, it's going to equal x1 minus the mean over the standard deviation, and that's equal to 64 minus 63.7 divided by 2.9, which gives us 0.103, and rounding it to 2 decimal places is now going to give us 0.10. For z2, we're going to take x2, subtract the mean, and divide it by the standard deviation. So 77 minus 63.7 divided by 2.9 gives us 4.586, which rounded to 2 decimal places gives us 4.59. So therefore, that z-score is 4.59. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Stat and StatCrunch, and then we're going to select Calculators from the drop-down menu and Normal from the submenu. And then in the calculator box, we're going to make sure that the mean is 0 and the standard deviation is 1. And since we are looking for the area in between, we want to make sure to select the Between menu at the top. And then we're going to enter the z-score of 0.10 for the lower bound and 4.59 for the upper bound. So let's go ahead and do that. So open up in StatCrunch. We're going to select Stat, go to Calculators, and then scroll down to Normal. Okay, we know that our mean should be 0 and 1, and now we want to make sure that we select Between. So we know that this value on the left is going to be 0.10, and the value on the right is going to be 4.59, and then we're going to select Compute. So now let's go ahead and copy our graph here and our probability. Okay, and then we're going to match it to what we have here. Now, as you can see here, this looks like it's going all the way to the right because it goes past 3. So technically, it's still an area in between. It's just that we didn't, we're not going to 3. We're locating this as 4.59, but still, this is the area that's in between. And that probability is the following, 0.4601. Now, we're going to round that to 4 decimal places. So if we round it to 4 decimal places, that 1 now becomes a 2. So we want the area between 0.10 and 4.59, and StatCrunch provides the cumulative area that's in between. So the desired area rounded to 4 decimal places is 0.4602. So if we wanted to convert this into a percentage, we would multiply this by 100%, and that would give us a percentage of 46.02%. So the interpretation would be the following. We would say, expressing the result as a percentage, we conclude that about 46% of women satisfy the requirement of having a height between 64 inches and 77 inches. About 54%, meaning 100% minus 46%, which is equal to 54% of women, did not meet that requirement, and they were not eligible to be pilots in the U.S. Air Force. Now let's make note here. Sometimes there is a relatively small discrepancy between the area found in Table A2 and technology. The area obtained from technology will be more accurate because it is based on unrounded z-scores, whereas Table A2 requires z-scores rounded to 2 decimal places.